behind the dais.
Right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the first regular board meeting of the 2024 calendar year. It's Thursday, January 25th. We're coming to you from the Berlin room of the Olentangy Administrative Offices and also streamed live across the world. So we are excited to have so many visitors here today, and we've got a lot going on. So we'll move right into the roll call. Mr. Jenkins, I'll ask you to call the roll.
Mr. Lester.
Here.
Dr. Dabrico.
Here.
Dr. Wallach.
Here.
Mr. O'Brien.
Here.
Ms. Schreiber.
Here.
For the Pledge of Allegiance tonight, we have Boy Scout Troop 428 that is going to come in and bring in the flags and lead us in that. So we'll welcome them to come in.
All right. Could everybody please stand for the flag? Color guard advance. Scout salute. Or hand over heart. Color guard, prepare to post the flags. Post the flags. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
2. Color guard reform. Color guard return to post. Color guard halt. Color guard dismissed. At ease. Right.
And that was Ross Heatherman, who's the
Would you guys like to get a picture here before we're done?
Who's that?
Yeah.
Great. Where would you like them to be? Why don't you, is there room for them to stand behind?
Sure.
Why don't you guys all stand behind the board? Quick, like little bunny.
Let me fix my hair
Oh,
first.
no.
Yep. Ready? All right, we will move on. Thank you so much to Boy Scout Troop 428. We really appreciate it. Just to be clear, you guys are free to go at any point. We welcome you to stay at the meeting. There's a lot going on, but feel free to stay as long as you want, and if you have to go out, it's not a big deal. We'll move on to the approval of the agenda. I don't believe we have any additions. Does anyone have any additions to the agenda? All right, can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, Mr. Jenkins, please call the roll.
Mr. Lester.
Yes.
Dr. Dabrico.
Yes.
Dr. Wallach.
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien.
Yes.
Ms. Schreiber.
Yes.
All right, we're moving on to the board president's report. We have, as I've said, a lot going on tonight, so I will keep this fairly brief, but there are a couple of points I wanted to highlight. First of all, we have a brand-new board member, Ms. Lizette Schreiber, who is joining the board. We're, of course, deeply appreciative of Dr. Lakeisha Wise, who served a 4-year term, and her term just ended, and Ms. Schreiber joined us. So you have big shoes to fill, but we are confident that you will do a wonderful job. Your thoughtfulness and expertise are just really going to be a benefit to the board, so we very much appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
The second thing I want to mention, a number of you have hopefully heard in the community that we have a bond issue and a levy issue that are on the ballot this year. These are important things for the community, and it is not our role as board members or as district officials to tell people how to vote. It's not our role to tell people how to vote, but it is our responsibility to make sure that people have the information so that they can make an informed decision about this. We've been doing a lot of work in the community over the past few weeks, and we're going to continue to do that, including some community conversations, some social media, some handouts, things like that. What I would ask that everybody does is take one of these opportunities, come out to a school, check out the district page for some information, and if you still have questions, come to any of us. We are more than happy to answer questions about that. We're going to address some of the issues in tonight's meeting and subsequent meetings so that people have the information, but it is imperative that you find the opportunities to get the information that will help you be an informed voter. So I want to encourage everyone to do that. The next thing I want to address is this is Board Appreciation Week, and we are always extraordinarily humbled by all the activities that happen, and so excited to welcome groups like Troop 428, groups like the Berlin Advanced Treble Ensemble, who I heard warming up and are just amazing, and I'm very excited for everybody to hear them. I think I speak for all of us when I say we are so thankful to be able to serve this district. This is a very, very large district, and it takes a lot of work by a lot of people to make it feel small. We have such wonderful teachers and staff and administrators and parents and students who are committed to making an unbelievable educational community. All of you play a part in that. All of you here and everybody out there, we as board members are just so incredibly appreciative of all of you. Thank you for what you are doing. Thank you for letting us play a small role as community representatives to help guide the district and things like that. But truly, thank you for all that you do every day to make this a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful school district. With that, I will move to committee updates. I have one for mental health, which is the board mental health committee, which was an ad hoc committee, is now a formal board committee, had its first meeting as a true board committee. We are very excited about all the work that's going to be happening over the next couple of years. We have students, we have parents, we have community members on that. That work is just beginning. So just that to report right now. I believe facilities met, Ms. Schreiber, Dr. Dabrico were there. Anything that you all have to share about that?
We need more space. It's going to the community events is awesome because I love meeting people that I normally would not see in different parts of our district. The thing that's been the most informative for me is listening to folks that work in the buildings talk about what growth means in their buildings and talk about the trade-offs that they have to make. And I don't like to hear everything that they say, and it's a challenge for us to help meet their facility needs. So it's been a great couple weeks, but very busy. So that's my takeaway from facilities. I mean, the nuts and bolts of facilities, as you well know, talks about all these things that we're trying to figure out with this levy. You want to add anything on to that?
No, I think
For your first facility?
No, I am still, want to thank everybody for the well wishes. I'm still trying to acclimate myself a little bit, but I think it is pretty evident that the Facilities Committee is doing a great job in terms of evaluating the current space that we have, evaluating the needs that we have going forward, and really trying to keep us informed as a board, as well as working amongst themselves to ensure that we're at least aware of the challenges so that we can try to bring that information forward to the public so that when something like a levy is brought forward, we can bring forward the facts. And they've done a lot of research. They've done so much planning and working with other people in terms of trying to see what our usage is going to be for the next 10, 20, 40 years. So they've provided a lot of information, and I'm very thankful for the Facilities Committee and all the work that they do.
That's great. Any other, I don't believe the other committees have met yet, but any other?
Not this year. no.
Okay. Yep. Great. All right, that's the end of my report, so I'll turn it over to Mr. Meyer.
All right. Great, packed house. All right, so, Mr. Lester, as you said, January is School Board Recognition and Appreciation Month. So tonight, in honor of our Olentangy School Board, we have cards created by students for all of you. Noelle is with us tonight from the Olentangy ACT program with her family to present the cards.
I'm not really sure where I should be.
Getting up? Hi, Noel.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Noel.
Okay, we have some more. Certificate of sincere appreciation for exemplary leadership and service to public schools. So I'm going to present each of you with a certificate, and then Mr. Wright is going to present each of you with a bouquet of flowers.
Sir,
Thank you.
my wife next to you.
Already, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer.
Thank you.
I want to give a pen away.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Favorites.
Appreciate it.
This is what every meeting is like,
I know,
right?
right?
Flowers, awards, certificates, cards,
Yeah.
yeah.
These are wonderful. That's all right. Thank you.
Thank you again. See, Ms. Schreiber, you didn't know that you were going to get pampered with gifts.
I know.
Don't like this every meeting.
Okay, so one more honor. So we have a special performance by Olentangy Berlin High School Advanced Treble Ensemble, directed by Mr. S. So I'm going to ask Mr. S. to come up to the podium, and then we're going to have a performance in honor of our Board of Education. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. While the choir is getting situated, I just wanted to, first off, thank everyone for your continued support of our arts programs in all of our buildings. Thank you to the Board of Education, Mr. Meyer, and everyone for allowing us this opportunity to perform. Tonight, we have the Advanced Treble Ensemble, which is the best of our best at Berlin in our choir department. This group has been resilient, curious, all those wonderful things that we want from our learners, and they have worked hand in hand, side by side to build just a fantastic program that we're all really proud of. Wasn't expecting that, but it's really neat to see the growth and the commitment, especially trying to build a program over a pandemic, right? When like 2 years ago, or however many years ago, they said, singing, oh, I don't know how we're gonna do that. These kids figured it out. They did it. They did the hard work. So to our Board of Education, continue to do the hard work, just as our students do. The music you'll hear tonight is stories. We have a really great performance coming up, and I'll tell you about it here soon. But it is stories of strength and stories of rising above. And we commend you for all of that work that you do. Here's our first piece. There is a place. heavily involved? Raise your hand if you play a sport or played a sport in high school. Great. Have made the honor roll at some point. Yes, great. In theater, in band, in orchestra, in a club. Okay, right. In an AP class? Well, there we go. All right. So these folks, they've built our program. This group itself started at a Class B level and has climbed its way up to a AA, which is the highest level in our State Music Education Association. This particular group has been selected to perform at the State Music Conference that is next week in Columbus. To put that into context, ensembles from the entire state of Ohio will apply, and a committee will just blindly listen to those groups, and they'll say, we'll take this college choir, that high school band, this high school choir, not knowing who they are. All that to be said, only 2 high school choirs will be performing at the conference next week, and this is one of them. So they were selected. We're really strong at all of our programs and all of our buildings, and here at Berlin, with exceptional leadership and much appreciation to Mr. Spinner and his team, we have a thriving performing arts program. We have 4 singers who will be singing in the All-State Choir. We have 2 instrumentalists who will be singing, performing in the All-State Orchestra. The arts are strong, and we are so appreciative for all your support. So our final piece is a really cool piece called Dayum Sampan. We'll be performing it tomorrow evening, in addition to all of our conference performance here in the Delaware community. We'll be singing at Asbury United Methodist Church as a preview concert for this big honor of the conference next week. Dayum Sampan is a piece of music. It was originally an Indonesian folk song to kind of tell about journeying across the dangerous seas and trying to make it to Singapore for the hope of a brighter future, a more positive tomorrow. But getting through that hard work and doing the hard work and continuing to row the boat. So again, to our board, thank you for all your hard work. Here's Dayum Sampan.
Dayung sampan, dayung dayung sampan, datang dari negara Cina sampai Singapura. Dayung sampan,
Thank you for coming.
Awesome. Great job.
I'm feeling very
Great job.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you so much to everybody. And the same thing applies. You can feel free to stay, but you don't have to. Feel free to, to get your stuff. Thank you. That was just truly unbelievable. Mr. Argabright, you have a very, very tough act to follow. But I think we're ready to move forward with our presentation. So I don't know if you have a song prepared.
It's always a tough act to follow, the students. Good evening. It's time for our annual Pupil Services Update. With us this evening are our 4 assistant directors, Stephanie Dabrico, Malika Jefferson, Jacqueline Roscoe, and Eric Gully. Let's see. Where are we at? And tonight we will talk a little bit about our Pupil Services team. We'll give special education and related services update. We will also talk about the House Bill 436, which is the dyslexia law. We'll have an English learners update and a preschool update. But before I turn it over to our assistant directors, I would like to publicly thank the 4 of them for the work that they do. They're all 4 of them are excellent leaders, and the support that they provide for our students and staff are greatly appreciated. And they do a great work, and the work that they do is very important, and it's greatly appreciated. I would also like to thank all of our staff. As you will see, we have a lot of students in the district that we provide support for, and all of our staff in Pupil Services I would like to give a shout out for because of the great work that they do. So with that being said, I would like to turn it over to Malika.
Good evening. How are you? I get to talk about the most important part of our department, and that is our students and our staff. We are very gracious to have our pupil services supervisors that work closely with our buildings day in and day out to provide services and guidance to our principals, to our teachers, and our related service staff. Currently, we are responsible for identification and delivery of services to all students with disabilities. That includes students on IEPs and 504s. We have over 5,100 students that we currently serve in those 2 categories, and to the right of the screen you can see the disability categories that they fall under. We also have the top-notch intervention specialists and related services providers that work day in and day out with our students. We're proud of the work that they do. And you can see a list of the intervention specialists that we have K-12. Currently, we have 271 intervention specialists that work with our students every day, and it includes our related service staff. So that would be our speech and language pathologist, our occupational therapist, ASL interpreters, vision specialists, and many more. We are fortunate to also have 2 parent mentors that work with our parents in the district, and that's pre-K to 12 plus, because we have students in the ACT program, as you saw tonight. So we are very proud of the work that they do every day, and I will turn it over to Stephanie.
Good evening. Thanks again for having us. My name is Stephanie Daberco. I work, kind of my focus work is with the elementary buildings. I have 2 slides to share with you tonight. The first slide is related to our district report card data for students with disabilities. You might know or remember on our district report card that overall we received a 5-star, which is the highest rating for our gap closing component, which means we significantly exceed state standards in closing educational gaps. And that's measured across various subgroups. One of those subgroups is students with disabilities. So on your screen, you see just a few of those data points we kind of pulled from the report card that speaks specifically to students with disabilities and how they're performing. And as you can see, exceeding in several different areas, exceeding the performance index in both ELA and math, exceeding expected growth in math, and exceeding graduation rates. We're very, very proud. You'll hear us all probably say that, very, very proud of our students, our staff, our community, the family support that we receive. All right, switching gears. House Bill 436, the dyslexia law. We've talked about this in front of you before. I believe it went into effect spring of '21. So just kind of providing an update for you tonight. Just a quick summary of the law. It had kind of 3 main components. One is about dyslexia screening process. The second component is about intervention, and the third is about professional development. I think your next presenter, Jeanette Kenny, is actually going to talk about the dyslexia screening process, so I'm going to let her do that. I'm going to focus on the professional development component just real quick, and obviously that relates to and impacts the intervention component. So I think when we've talked to you before, you might remember that the bill outlines 18 hours of required professional development for teachers, kind of a rollout over multi-years. I think that second bullet point there kind of gives you an update in terms of the number of staff that have gone through that training that was developed and well underway. We're moving forward and doing what we need to do with that component. But another sort of requirement in that professional development category is for districts to establish a multi-sensory structured literacy certification process. It's a mouthful. And we're very proud of this work as well. And in fact, we were well underway with this work before the law was enacted. So what that means is we have district dyslexia specialists. These are teachers who have advanced training and also a passion for leading and mentoring other teachers. And they help us to structure an in-house training program specifically for our intervention staff, but really all teachers can access this opportunity. But essentially that certification process really allows for staff to, intervention staff specifically, who are working with students with dyslexia, to go way above and beyond those 18 hours of required PD. In fact, many of them are doing a minimum of 30. Most of them are doing 60 hours of coursework related to multi-sensory reading, intervention methodology. And not even just doing coursework, but they're participating in what we call a supervised practicum, which involves observations by these teacher leaders and kind of real-time formative feedback as they're working with students. They get that feedback to really grow their instructional practices. In addition to that, the coursework, in addition to the observations and the practicum, teachers then actually, intervention specialists are engaging in an application process through the Orton-Gillingham Academy, which gives them a credential. It's called an associate level certification. We were actually the first district in the nation to become accredited by the Orton-Gillingham Academy. So lots of great work happening. I'll let you kind of read the stats on the screen there. And if you have any questions after we're done presenting, just let me know. All right. Eric?
Oh, okay.
You're up.
I think you're next.
Oh.
Okay, cool.
Hi, everyone. This is my first year in Olentangy, and I'd just like to take a second to say what an amazing district it is and how grateful I am to have the opportunity to serve the students, families, staff, and community. As you can see in the slide, our EL population continues to grow in both size and linguistic diversity, which is why it's so important we're able to continue to recruit the most qualified candidates. The Human Resources Department has been superb in their efforts to identify excellent applicants so we can keep up with the demand. Additionally, through a strategic partnership with Otterbein University, current Olentangy teachers can earn their TESOL endorsement at a discounted rate, enabling them to apply for K-12 EL specialist positions. When we get the best teachers in front of our students, we know what the result is, and it's success, as the data in the next slide will show. In addition to exceeding these gap closing measures on the state report card, the English language proficiency rates of Olentangy students have not only surpassed the state average, but also the average of our closest competitor district for the last 5 years. And I promise I'll do my best to continue that our students experience this kind of success. Thanks.
Thanks, Eric. And I'm the last slide of the evening for our department. My name is Jacqueline Roscoe, as Marty had shared. I am the assistant director that oversees our special needs preschool. My slide's really just highlighting the growth. As Dr. Daberco indicated, facilities is really a piece that preschool monitors closely. Our locations are heavily dependent on the elementary enrollment. Our preschool program is in 5 of our elementary schools. We are in the former central office, which is Shanahan Preschool, which is our largest location. And 5 years ago when my role started, the district leadership team had expanded the program into the Career Center to serve as the early childhood partnership with that program. And so we have 1 classroom there. Just some trend data. Jack Fetty always reassures me that it's very difficult to find trends in preschoolers as we're trying to identify who at the age of 3 will have a disability. And so I will say our enrollment from the time about 2 months ago that we thought we might be presenting to you till now, our numbers had already changed. So we, on average, if I had to give an average stat, we grow about 20 students per month. So that is just our special needs population. What I've highlighted here is our continuum of preschool classrooms and services that we offer. The first 4 are center-based programs, which are specialized learning centers, much like kindergarten through 12th grade. These are founded with a preschool teacher, and we have 2 intervention aides, or what we call preschool assistants. All of our preschool teachers are dually licensed. They have to have an early childhood general education license, where they're a general education teacher, as well as the intervention specialist. So HR also partners with us to try to find those qualified candidates and really recruit people, not that are just licensed, but passionate about the work. We've expanded our specialized learning centers to help have our most restricted environment being foundations, but then introducing students to peers once they gain those foundational skills. We also have an extended day program and then our integrated program. Phonology is actually a unique course that we pair with our district speech and language pathologist to directly target students with only an articulation delay. So that program is offered 90 minutes a week on Mondays only. We would not call that a center-based program. Our itinerant program is when we actually partner with local preschools in the community, where our teachers go out into those community preschools like a Goddard or a Hugs and Hearts, students that is their least restricted environment in the community preschool, and we bring a speech language pathologist and or an intervention specialist to partner with them. So we have a wide range of programming, which makes my job a little bit challenging, but some of the stats, just like Malika and Eric and Stephanie indicated, are our staff. That's really how we accomplish the work that we do. So this data point's maybe about 2 weeks old, so it probably is already outdated as well. But we have 445 IEP students in our program. Some of these classrooms have peer models, which are typically developing students in the program, and we have 293. By the way, to the public, our application for the 24-25 school year is currently open. And so I mentioned the 7 locations, and that will be flexing for next year, so we're always kind of a little bit in the lurch. And our program goals is expanding with our parent mentors who partner to have site parents. They help build those community events and opportunities for the students to connect with other students. We continue to screen our peers to really make them assets in our classroom. We've been doing parent education on the district initiative of positive behavior intervention systems, on PBIS, and I'm fortunate to be on the district committee for that. And we're really diving in deep with the curriculum and assessment work and pairing with the curriculum department of the recent math adoption, as well as the upcoming review of literacy adoption, to bring those teaching essentials into preschool and prepare our students for school age. So thank you for your time. On behalf of our department, are there any questions?
Just a comment.
Yeah.
In our
Careful.
first
Yeah, be
regular
careful.
meeting.
Yeah.
Mr. O'Brien, start the time. If your students, and they're all of our students, but you know what I mean, the numbers that you put up, if they were a school district by themselves, they would be the 54th largest school district in Ohio, with 500 and something smaller than them. They would be a school district bigger than New Albany, bigger than Miamisburg, twice as big as Buckeye Valley, bigger than Buckeye Walnut, bigger than Youngstown. You serve an amazing amount of kids, and it's emotional to me because this is something that's really important to me. Our students that you specifically serve make us all better, and our lives are enriched, and part of getting to maximize learning for all our students is the students that you serve, so thank you. Just one question. Is your number growing over time as a percentage? So you're at 27%. Is that growing or is that shrinking? What does that look like?
27%. I'm trying to look at what question. Okay. I don't. Growing. Growing. I was like, I can speak specifically for preschool. We're definitely on an upward trend. In COVID, we kind of halted for a minute, even stepped back for a little bit, and then we took off full-fledged. So I was trying to look at what stat you were going on with the 27%. Yeah.
And that's a percentage of all the students?
Yes.
Yep, all of the growth that we have. And relative to the enrollment of the district, as do our special education programs grow.
Thank you for your hard work.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
And these preschool services are required, correct?
Yes, it is required at the federal level that any public school district provides and has a child find is what the law is called, but to identify any student that may have a disability by their birthday age 3. We partner very closely with Delaware County. Many of our students are connected to Delaware County from birth all the way to age 3, and we highly encourage parents to get those early intervention services as they are key. So we partner with those local community members, and that's just one way we get our preschoolers. Those are actually the most predictable preschoolers because when they're born, if they go through that program, we anticipate them coming. Our move-ins just in the month of December is, I believe we had 19 new IEP students at the preschool level in the month of December enroll. If you think about a preschool section, we typically serve 8 students in one preschool classroom. So that is about 3, over 2 sections pushing a 3rd section. And so anticipating that growth is very challenging. So we try to identify through trends. But yes, it is a federal mandate at age 3. Any other questions from the board?
Just curious, of the students with IEPs and 504s, so that's, 5,100, that's, 20% or so of the total, student population in Olentangy. Do you have a sense for how that ranks in comparable districts to what percentage they are? Anecdotally, I've heard a lot of people move here for those services that we're providing, but I'm just kind of curious how we line up percentage-wise, with other districts.
Yeah, I'd say it's very comparable. We don't have those numbers.
Yeah.
We can get that information with the local districts, and well, I don't have that information right off, but we can get that.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Thank you all so much for your amazing work.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. There's a lot of applause tonight. This is great. So.
I love it.
Something else.
I'm going to keep that going every meeting.
Something else that I think is going to get some applause is Ms. Kenny and the 3rd grade ELA results.
Yep.
Good evening. Thank you again for having me. My name is Jeanette Kenny. I'm the Director of Data and Continuous Improvement. And so tonight I'm going to share with you a little bit about a reminder of what the 3rd grade reading guarantee is, how our fall results looked, and then some of the changes that have happened, as well as Stephanie had mentioned, a little information about the dyslexia screener, which is new this year to us. So just as a reminder to kind of set the groundwork, the third grade reading guarantee has been around for a long time. All kindergarten through third grade students are administered a reading diagnostic in the fall. If a student is identified as not on track, and we use AIMSweb Plus as our reading diagnostic, they are placed on a reading improvement monitoring plan. So you might hear the term RIMP or see that acronym several times. In third grade, this is kind of the high stakes grade, students must earn a promotion score or qualify for an exemption in order to be promoted to the fourth grade. Typically, the exemptions have been if a student is on an IEP and the IEP team determines that that's appropriate, if they're an EL student who has been in the U.S. schools for less than 3 years, or if a student has been previously retained. We'll talk about an addition to that exemption here in a couple of minutes. In order to earn that promotion score, students have really several opportunities. So the initial opportunity is the fall Ohio State test, which we'll talk about those results here in a minute. They will take what we call the Iowa test in end of February, which we use primarily as our gifted identification assessment, but it also counts as an alternative assessment for students to earn a promotion score. Then students will have another opportunity to pass the Ohio State test in the spring, as well as a summer opportunity. So they have many opportunities and periods of time with additional instruction and interventions in order to earn that promotion score. So this slide is going to show you 5 years of historical data for the fall test. One thing to keep in mind, and I think is important to point out, is that this is a end of the year third grade expectations test that students are taking in October. So you can see fall of this year, we had over 72% of our students in the fall of their third grade year already score proficient on end of the year expectations, which is phenomenal. You can also see that that is a little bit higher than we were even in the fall of 2019. So there is an asterisk if you see in the fall of 2020. I would interpret that data with caution because that was the hybrid year and the year of committed distance learning, so not all of our students even came in to take the test. So that's not necessarily representative of our population, and it was also immediately following the school shutdown. But you can see the trends in the data. The very bottom row of that is the percentage of students who met the reading promotion score in the fall. So you can see that we had almost 80% of our students already, we know, have met that promotion score to move on to the fourth grade, and we won't even need to worry about any of those exemptions. I've also included what that promotion score is. Starting back when the third grade guarantee began, that promotion score has increased each year. Over the COVID pandemic years, it did stall a little bit, but in the law it says that that must increase until the promotion score does become 700 or proficient on the state test. So next year, for our third graders in the 2024-2025 year, their promotion score is to be proficient on the state test. So if you look at some of the trends in meeting promotion score, even from last year to this year, the promotion score increased, and we increased the percentage of our students who are meeting that in the fall. So that is a testament to the incredible work that a lot of our K-2 literacy programs and teachers have been doing. House Bill 33 was passed, which did give some updates to the third grade reading guarantee. Most significant is probably an additional exemption opportunity. So currently, again, they need to earn a promotion score, or there is now a parent request exemption, which means that if a parent chooses and says and talks with the teacher and the principal and wants their student to move on to the fourth grade, they should have that conversation. They should be looking at other data points, but ultimately the parent can request that. That student would essentially qualify for an exemption and move on to the fourth grade. While they will move on to the fourth grade, there will be additional kind of requirements and supports and interventions provided to them. So if that student was not already on a reading improvement monitoring plan, now instead of those RIMPs ending in the third grade, those will continue to the fourth grade or fifth grade, and will follow that student until they're considered reading at grade level. So this year is the first year that we've had students on RIMPs past third grade, so we have fourth graders who are still on RIMPs. That will continue until they score proficient on Ohio State test, just to ensure that those students are receiving the intensive intervention that they need. High dosage tutoring is also a new requirement as part of the RIMPs, so that is just ensuring that these students are receiving interventions that are intensive, that are in addition to the reading instruction. and aligned with the science of reading. And then finally, as Stephanie mentioned, another thing that has been really big, along with the dyslexia laws, is this is the first year that we are doing the dyslexia screening. In this 23-24 school year, we are currently in the process of going through the dyslexia screener. We were thankful that the state did approve Ames Web Plus as a Tier 1 dyslexia screener, so an assessment that we were already giving our students in the winter, we were able to kind of have a dual purpose for it. We did have to add a few additional measures, but we were able to still, again, use something that our teachers and students were comfortable with and data that we already understand. This year is kind of the initial year. All K-3 students are required to be given the dyslexia screener, along with students who are transfer in grades 4 to 6. And then next year it will start that it's just every kindergartner will go through the dyslexia screening and then transfer in students grades 1 to 6. This is a visual that we've created. We had kind of a lot of anxiety sometimes when we have a new requirement of what is this going to look like in the buildings, what is the burden going to be on the buildings, and so we've kind of used this funnel to show people what that process is going to be. So step 1 in the blue at the top, all of our K-3 and then transfer 4 to 6 students are given the measures in Ames Web Plus, not very different from what we've done every winter. If a student scored in the 25th percentile or below on any of the required dyslexia measures, then they're given what we call the RAN, which is Rapid Automatized Naming. So this is a assessment that measures how quickly students can name aloud objects, pictures, colors, or symbols, and it is a strong predictor of ability to read and can indicate a risk of dyslexia. So again, bottom 25th percentile on Ames Web Plus, they're given the RAN. If they, on the RAN, they come out as not typical, then they kind of go into this next step. So then we're in that orange range. Those students then are progress monitored for up to 6 weeks, receiving intensive interventions to see, are they making progress? Are they responding to the interventions that the teachers are providing? If they are responding, then that's great, and then we'll continue to progress monitor and provide those interventions. And then if not, that final step down in the red, and we anticipate this being a very small percentage of students, but then they would be moving on to our Tier 2 dyslexia screener, which would be the CTOP. And that is an assessment that we've given here in the district for a while to look at what characteristics potentially of dyslexia students are showing, and then to determine next steps as far as figuring out what that student needs. So that is kind of a brief overview of a lot of things that are happening in literacy. Again, I think the data from the fall shows that a lot of the work that our teachers and the programs that we have are being very successful with our students, but this will allow us to kind of hone in on some of those students who might need just a little bit extra as well. Are there any questions?
Not a question, but as a parent of a third grader, I was quite excited to see those results come in, and I reached out, I think, to get a better sense of how the overall district was looking. And it's very impressive work being done here. So, yay.
Yeah.
Do third graders in the audience?
No?
Do kids retest in the spring if they passed in the fall?
They do.
Okay.
And it's really a good data point as well for us to see that growth. Even if a student is proficient in the fall, what are we doing then to help continue their growth, to see can we get them to that accomplished, their advanced range?
Is that required, or do we just do that?
Students are required to test once by law. So no, they're not required, but I think we have almost 100% of our students who do.
Yeah, in fact, don't we get scored based on what percentage of our students do in fact take the test?
We do, and the thing about third grade, since it's the only one that takes the test twice, is the highest score is going to count. So if the student only tested in the fall, that's the score that would count, but because students typically with a whole nother year of instruction are going to perform better, usually it is that spring score that's going to count for us.
And I'm wondering, when you look at the fall 2020, you don't have to answer this, I'm just thinking, that I would wonder how many of those kids we got dinged just didn't take the test. For that 59%.
So that is 59% of the students who took the test were proficient, but like I said, we would have to go back and dig to see what percentage of our kids actually even took that assessment, since it was so early into returning back to school and just the comfort level of families. We didn't require anyone to come in. It was a family decision if they chose to.
My daughter didn't take it in fall of 2020.
Any other questions?
All right, thank
Okay.
you so much. And I'll reiterate before we get into our capital improvements, if anybody else, any other students, you feel free.
You guys don't want to stay to talk about numbers? Numbers and charts, come on.
All right. This is a repeat for a couple of you who attended the Facilities Committee meeting, so I apologize for that. This should be fairly quick. This is the format that we've used for several years now for capital planning. The top half in blue is some of the bond funds that we'll be expending and the plan going forward for those. In the white are PI expenses. You see the totals at the bottom. I'm going to come back and it's hard to see, so we'll focus on the next slide a little bit on some pieces of this that I want to highlight. The one thing that I did want to mention before I flip the screen is that the PI contingency balance at the bottom, we have set aside for the last several years, $250,000 up to where we're now holding at $750,000 PI contingency for any emergencies or things that come up that are unforeseen, a chiller that unexpectedly would go out or something where we just didn't have that budget and needed to add a project in where we didn't have other funds available. A couple things here on the technology portion. We did have an increase overall on our PI collections, so we had actually increased our technology by $925,000 on this report. Our general permanent improvements increased $475,000, but again, we did leave the PI at the same. And the increase in the technology was not an increase for a new initiative or additional devices. It actually is reflective of increase in prices. For example, a 7-year refresh that we last performed in 2016 increased about 240%, was $2.2 million in 2016 and $5.3 million now in 2023. So that increase is just covering the cost that we've seen across the board in technology cost over the last several years. The the top part of the plan that we talked about was the bond portion. You can see here that it's our usual school bus replacements, the roof replacement, mechanicals. The one addition here that is $1 million window replacement project. Those are the wooden Pella windows that we have at majority of our buildings, and going back to the earlier elementary schools in Olentangy High School. Now those windows are over 30 years old, and we're starting to see a lot of failure. So we're going to do a big window bid this year, and we're going to use interest from bonds that were approved in 2020 to fund that. The remaining bond funds, as you see on the right, when we went out last time in 2020 on the bond, we had money set aside annually for roofing, the things you see here, mechanicals and school bus replacements, and that was because our PI collections, we were trying to balance what we had passed for millage for PI and then supplementing that with bond funds. As you can see here, if we don't add any additional funding going forward, we're going to not have any additional bond funding for those categories starting in our fiscal year 2026 budget, which then means that we go back to this screen here, and all of those white columns would have to change. Things that where you see for asphalt and some of the bigger things, interior finishes, flooring, all of those things, all of those would have to decrease because we would have to continue doing things like roofing and replacing mechanicals as they go bad, because those are things that we can't necessarily do without. So that would be the big change that you would see in the outgoing years, is that all of a sudden those lower categories would change. And with that, I will ask if you have any questions.
Can we just save money by putting it off?
That would be deferred maintenance, and that, you can get by with that for a very short period of time, but you pay for that in the end with things like when you're not maintaining your roofs and water gets in the building, then you're dealing with things that could be mold in the building, damage to ceilings and flooring, as well as the mechanicals. If you're not replacing those and you're not doing the preventative maintenance that you need to be doing and replacing some of the parts, you'll much more quickly get to failure and have to replace the equipment versus some of the maintenance we're able to do using some of these PI funds. So we can put it off, but that doesn't last for very long. It ends up costing you more money down the road, and you have more issues and more emergencies to have to deal with when a roof gives away and you're dealing with what happens underneath.
So run to fail is not an approach that we're taking?
It's not an approach that the district has taken, no.
No, but we've known that the PI need is coming because as the district has grown and we've added more buildings, the average age of the building has gone up, and so we know we're at some point we'll tip over from new to only maintenance, right? When we stop building, whenever that is. But yeah, we've known this need is coming, and we've tried to be thoughtful in how we plan for it and prepare for it.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, that need's always going to continue, or not. It will always continue as the buildings age for decades as we continue to add buildings. We did it in the fall or spring. I presented a 20-year plan that took into account the buildings through Peach Blow Crossing. Any additional buildings we build going forward will then have to be added into the next evaluation of that and future funding on PI. So it's going to continue to be an ever-increasing cost, just like with your house. As your house ages, there are things you have to replace, and you can replace your roof and your HVAC and those in flooring, but if you're in the house long enough, you might have to do it 2 or 3 times, right, depending on how long you live there. So,
Mr. O'Brien, you bring up a great point. You know, you being here, every time I walk a building with you, you're talking to me about how this saves money. So I just really appreciate that we have someone in our district full-time that has an encyclopedia in their mind, and I'm sure probably on spreadsheets as well, of where we are at on every building, because not every district has that. They have to pay more money to have someone outside come in and tell them what you know already. So
yeah,
appreciate you.
Well, thank you. And even prior to me taking over the blueprints and with our buildings being newer, the documentation, the information we have saves us money, because when vendors come in or our architects come in, we can provide them with a lot of the information they would have to spend time creating on their own. So it's all beneficial, but we've kept a very robust capital program here, and I hope to continue that.
Great. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
All right.
Would you clap?
Clap for that.
All right.
Everybody's getting a clap.
See, you would have felt bad if you didn't get any applause, Jeff. I mean,
right,
all those compliments
Mr.
and
Meyer. Yeah, for the superintendent's report.
all right. Well, good evening. Great meeting so far for the first regular meeting of the year, right?
Yeah.
I mean, excited anytime we can get students into a board meeting to perform and showcase the talent that we have across the district is just amazing. So I wish they were here, but I'll tell Mr. S. Congratulations and job well done again. So I do want to put this up here again. Thank you, school board. As we said, this month is School Board Appreciation Month, and I do want to take this opportunity to thank you for your sacrifice and your service, and especially now as we have a levy on the ballot in March. Many of you are spending so much time out there in the community, talking to community members and with us in our conversations that we're having in the building. So I know that that's a sacrifice away from your families and a service that you continue to provide not only to the community but also to the school district. One question, and I think I've finished now 8 months as superintendent, so one question I've asked a lot of people in my first 8 months, what makes you proud to work in Olentangy, to go to Olentangy if you're a student, or to live in Olentangy? And I hear a lot of things in words, themes, but one word that resonates with me personally is gratitude. Extremely grateful for the leadership of our Board of Education that allows us
to continue to propel and move forward to meet our mission to facilitate maximum learning for every student. And you heard a couple presentations tonight from our Pupil Services Department, obviously our fall ELA scores, and even on the operations side. And when I talk to folks across our district, it's every single individual in this district. So whether you're a bus driver, food service, custodian, teacher, aide, administrator, school board member, everybody is so important to making sure that we're providing the best environment and the best care that we can for our kids. So thank you for your leadership. I couldn't, as a superintendent, ask for a better board to work with, and I really do mean that, and appreciate all that you do. So thank you. All right, so students and stakeholders, also great thing that we do here. So on Martin Luther King Day, the day of service, which was Monday, January 15th, it was real cold that day. So again, to honor the life and vision of Dr. Martin Luther King with a donation drive for our community partners. So you can see the list of the community partners, but many people in the community stepped up to come over here to the administrative office and donate items to these organizations. I drove through and we had staff members, students, volunteering, parents to help out that day out in the frigid cold, but they did get to run in the side door and warm up here in the building, but job well done. Also want to highlight this. So this is pretty cute. So I just actually came across this. Amanda pointed this out to me today. So how to get the superintendent to call a snow day. So third graders at Johnny Cake, this was last Thursday, so they had a special visit from Assistant Principal Sarah Kirby, who came in to do a lesson on weather. So they created snow people, and just as that day they went through the activity, guess what happened the next day? We had a snow day. It was perfect. So I'm sure they were all excited, like, yeah, let's do this every week. But so wanted to point that out. Spelling Bee, so also want to congratulate all of our participants in the 23-24 Spelling Bee. So you can see the winners from all of our elementaries and middle schools there on the right of the screen. So again, congratulations, and we'll see as far as the next round, because they'll move on to district and regional competition. So we will keep the board updated on our student progress in that event. Okay, and Mr. Lester mentioned this, and we talked about it in the December meeting. Leading up to the levy, we're going to have a section in the superintendent report and the treasurer report that will talk about facts, and these are really things that we're hearing in the community, questions that we're getting from community members at our community conversations or our coffee chats. So we're going to capitalize on that, not only continue to update our FAQ questions, our FAQs, which are located on our district website, but also highlight some of these themes or questions that we're hearing at board meetings leading up to the levy. So first, know the facts. So as Mr. Lester also mentioned, we're holding community conversation events in every one of our school buildings. In addition to that, we're also adding events in people's homes, the traditional coffee chats that the district has done in the past. Mr. Jenkins, Ms. Davis, and I are actually doing the coffee chats in the home. So when we're in a home and we have a conflict with a building, then representatives from our district leadership team will be in the building. So as a matter of fact, I think tonight Mrs. Freese and Ms. Davis are over at Heritage Elementary School. But for me, it's great because we're making connections with community members. They have ability to ask questions. We're letting them know the facts and the need of our upcoming ask here in March. And really, they've been great so far. Very, very insightful and engaged community members and insightful questions. And like I said, board members are all attending those, so appreciate your involvement with those as well. So with that, one question I wanted to highlight tonight. So we got this question a few times, and again, we added this to our FAQ on the website. Do renters in the district pay
their share of property taxes to the school district. So property taxes are paid by the owners of apartment or condominium complexes. So indirectly, then through a rent or a lease, a person may pay or help pay the taxes for that complex.
Just to be clear,
Yes.
a question on that. Those are typically higher than residential rates,
Correct.
is that right?
Yes, correct. And thanks for pointing out, because these complexes in our communities are some of the largest contributors to property tax. Actually, 6 of the highest 10 are apartment complex owners as far as contributors to property tax. Do the multifamily complexes drive up Olentangy student enrollment? And again, a lot of times that's a misconception, because we continue to grow, and as we continue to grow, you do see multifamily complexes also grow in the district. So our student density, and we wanted to point this out, so for these large complexes, so multifamily is 0.2 students compared to 0.8 student density from single-family homes. So you can see, so of all of our multifamily across the district, apartments, condos, townhomes, or manufactured homes, we receive about a little over 2,600 students, 2,650. So by contrast, there are currently over 18,500 students in Olentangy schools from single-family homes in subdivisions. So that's in subdivisions. We also have students outside of subdivisions in houses in some of our rural areas in the district as well. So what that equates to, so for every 5 multifamily units in the district, Olentangy enrolls 1 student compared to 4 students enrolled from every single-family home. So the growth in our population is tied to the growth in single-family homes located in the subdivision. So that's really where the growth is coming from. Another question, can we build larger schools to hold more students? And we've heard this for sure the last week, right, Mr. Jenkins? So you can see there on the graph on the right side of the screen, and somebody asked us this in a key communicators meeting a couple months ago. They wanted to know, we're the 4th largest district in the state, so they wanted to know, okay, how many buildings do we have? Currently 27. So the district's similar in size to us. How many facilities, buildings do they have? So you can see up there the 3 largest district in the state, and the 2 right behind us, and how many facilities they have. So our high schools are 4 of the 16 largest in Central Ohio and 41 largest in the state. So average high school size in Ohio, 700 students. Our middle schools, 6 of the 40 largest. And then our elementary, 20% largest K-5 schools in the state. And you can see the average there, K-5 elementary, 434, and in our current elementary, 650. And we talk a lot about this because, and I mentioned it about the student experience, and for that, for us, that's extremely important, the student experience. So as our buildings continue to grow, we lose a little bit of that. So relationships, connectedness, opportunities for kids, and we hear that loud and clear in our buildings, where sometimes because as we continue to increase in our buildings with student population, we lose some of that. So we obviously are recommending moving forward the addition of 5 buildings to accommodate the growth. That's really our why. We're projected to grow by 20%, 5,000 students over the next 10 years. So for us as a district to be responsible and plan for that, to be able to accommodate that growth.
So that's,
Yep.
oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I think fundamental to this question is the concept of neighborhood schools, particularly at the elementary level. So one of the kind of principles that we've always kind of worked towards is making sure the elementaries are in neighborhoods that the kids live in, so that they go to school in the neighborhood they live in, versus a mega elementary from all over the place. So back to that student experience, having a
Yes.
neighborhood school, particularly at elementary, is very important. It's been a fundamental kind of premise of how we've dealt with growth and dealt with elementary expansion.
Absolutely, and thank you for bringing that up, because that geographic proximity to the school is so important. So this year, for example, we're overflowing now out of Cheshire, so those students who live in that attendance boundary have to go to another school. We're overflowing 2 grades out of Arrowhead, we're overflowing 2 grades out of Freedom Trail and Glen Oak. So for those families, yeah, that's a different experience, and that's not the experience we want. So the redistricting does a good job, not only geographic, but also with the attendance patterns from elementary to middle school to high school as well.
So, and I think it's important to think of this in terms of the redistricting, that when we open a new school and we redistrict, we're moving a neighborhood, right? This neighborhood is going, or this particular thing. When we're overflowing, it's individual, right?
Correct.
'Cause you might move in to a school or to a house that you can see the school from, and you might not be able to go to that school because you've got to be overflowed somewhere else.
Correct. And all your new friends live right next door, across the street. Yeah, they go to a different
And
school.
that will just continue on a basis of wherever we've got to move people.
Yes, so, that's just the situation we're in. So this year, and we throw this stat, we're already 250 students over where we started the year, this year, and continue to grow
Well, and
weekly.
Beyond the student experience, doesn't it also become a safety concern when we have really large numbers of students in buildings?
Yeah. Anytime, obviously, you're adding numbers, it becomes more concerning, so yes.
You've said it all. The transportation thing for me is mind-boggling. I mean, pick kids up at a school, take them to the neighborhood, by the school.
Yeah, we didn't even get into that because, again, operationally, that's a challenge, because when a new family moves in and we overflow, we provide the transportation. So,
Right. And we're talking about, one of the keys to our ability to control costs is to scale. We do not want to scale kids in different neighborhoods.
No.
Because that's not fiscally responsible.
And like Mr. O'Brien said, that is not, as far as when we continue to grow, for sure, what we want as a district as far as our student experience.
We can still be big, but let it feel small
Correct.
with a neighborhood.
Okay, so just moving on to superintendent action items. You can see we have 2 retirements, so I want to just point those out. So Ms. Linda Mead, she will be retiring from secretary from the academy. She's been with the district since 2003, so 21 years. So we want to wish her well and thank her for her years of service. Suzanne Sleeper, 33 years in the district, since July 24th, 1990. So again, first grade teacher at Wyandotte Run. Want to thank her for her tremendous amount of service over 33 years to many, many students and families, and want to wish her well. We have seniors for graduation, early graduation on the board agenda, curriculum and instruction items. There's a new club, and then overnight out-of-state trips, and then business management and facility items. I'm not going to read those because we added a discussion item, or included a discussion item tonight, because we have so many at such a high price tag there. So I want Jeff again is going to come up during the discussion portion of the board agenda to discuss those things with the board. Important dates coming up. One community conference, Saturday, February 3rd at Orange High School, 9 to 3:30, so that's right around the corner. And again, that's really a great community experience, and what I enjoy the most is when we have students there, because when you hear student voice, again, about their student experience, that is extremely important for us as an organization. Classified interview day, Wednesday, February 7th. 2024 State of the Schools coming up, February 28th, so I know it's about a month away, but we're going to continue to advertise that, which will be 6 to 8 at Olentangy High School, and then our next regular Board of Education meeting will be Tuesday. It's on a Tuesday, not Thursday, February 6th at 6:30 right here.
All right, thank you, Mr. Meyer.
Thank you.
Mr. Jenkins.
Everybody gets a trophy.
Good evening, members of the Board of Education. I had a few things that I wanted to discuss as well this evening that dealt with what we're doing as a community, or as a school district, excuse me, to inform the community about some things that we hear as we go around the community. One of the hot topics has been the increase in values for the 2023 reappraisal. These tax rates are official. They can be found at the Delaware County Auditor's website, certainly can be found at some point on the Ohio Department of Taxation's website. But the 34, yes, sir.
Have they cleaned up the whole property tax model issue? Is that all resolved?
So I believe the modeler calculator is there, but it would work now, I assume, because they've updated the rates.
Should be, yeah, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
But that really would be irrelevant because tax bills are posted.
So it's out there.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
So the 34% average increase that would have occurred with residential property in our district would have caused our tax rates to drop by about 22%. Inside mills, you can see from 2022 to 2023, they stay consistent. But voted operating mills dropped 10.66 mills, or about 25%. Bond retirement, we'll say more about that in just a minute. We worked with the county auditor proactively to decrease that by $1.25 million, which is about 16 2/3%. Permanent improvement would have dropped about 0.31 mils, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's about 25% of that effective millage rate. So from 56.2 to 43.98 total mills, that's a drop of 12.22 mils, or just a little shy of 22% for the tax rates.
So,
Go ahead, brother.
let me ask a question about this. So there was a chart that I saw, I think, on the PAFR and also on the district social media that showed the tax rates on a $400,000 home and how they've kind of gone down. And I saw some comments on that where people said, well, this doesn't make sense because my rates went up, right? What I hear you explaining is if your house value had stayed the same, that the taxes on that would have gone down, but people's values went up. So, if their value went from $400,000 to $500,000, they're paying less than a $500,000 house would have been paying in the past, but they're still going to be paying more than a $400,000 house. Is that?
That's correct. We took a $400,000 home, which is the mathematical average value of a property in our district, and we simply looked at how the tax rates on a $400,000 home have changed over time. So the home value was held constant. The tax rates drop. Yes, the key would be that somebody who had a $400,000 home in 2020, that home might now be a $500,000 home. And that explains why rates could have dropped, but an individual's tax bill could have increased. But that does not change the mathematical reality that rates drop. It's the law. They have to.
So this is important because it's important to understand that the reappraisals does not mean a financial windfall for Olentangy schools. We're not getting new vending machines and everything. This is not something that we're, however you want to say it, you can think of something probably more clever than I could.
So House Bill 920 was put into place in the late 70s when inflation was rampant. And I actually appreciate it, and I think everybody else sitting around the table here or in the audience tonight and listening probably should too. Because what the bill said was, for existing properties from one tax year to the next, there shouldn't be a windfall for a government entity based strictly on inflation. The simple mathematical reality is if a tax rate stays exactly the same, but the value that it's assessed against goes up 30%, then taxes would also, in aggregate, go up 30%. So our legislators, over 50 years ago, decided that, hey, what we're going to do is a calculation each year, and that calculation will look at what's called carryover property. Carryover property just means it was taxed in a subsequent year, beg your pardon, it was taxed in a preceding year, and then taxed in the next subsequent year. So carryover property from 2022 to 2023 had a calculation done so that for the school district, the taxes that we collected in 2022 on existing properties in aggregate had to be the same in 2023. So aggregate rates had to fall from 56.2 to 43.98 so that property that was taxed in 2022 and was still on the duplicate and being taxed in 2023 in aggregate brought us in the same amount of voted taxes.
So if your taxes went up, that just simply means that as they rebalance everything, that just means that your house went up higher than the average, and the increase, and stop me when I am wrong.
Keep rolling.
The increase reflects just because they rebalance that as an aggregate from that ask, and that just means you went up more than average.
That is correct. If you look in the law, these are actually called tax equalization calculations. The goal of the law is to rebalance and re-equalize the millage. And I like to say it that if on average that increase in our district was 34%, you can think of 34% as kind of a new zero. What do I mean by a new zero? If your home increased 20%, which most people probably would be happy with. You know, you're not going to be underwater on your mortgage. The equity in your home increased. Your home increases 20%. The average increase in the district is 34%. We're actually seeing homes that their tax bills fell. And that is mathematical. We've already seen it. We've talked through the fact that homes that have appreciated 20 to 25% can actually see their aggregate tax bills from 2022 to 2023, and remember that means pay in 23 versus 24, they've fallen. We've also obviously heard from individuals who've had a 55% increase in their value. If you look at your new zero of 34%, unfortunately, those folks will see about a 21 or 22% increase in their tax bill because the new zero is 34. If you're right at or about 34%, we've already calculated that you will see your tax bill go up nominally between 3 and 4%. So that is exactly accurate. So for those on the high end where their tax bills went up more than normal, but those on the low end where in some cases they dropped, when you throw it all together for the district, our aggregate amount of revenue off of those levies is stable. And that's the same for any other taxable entity. The township for any of their levies, roads, fire, the same for the county. That's exactly how the law is supposed to work. Other questions? What we did that was a little bit above and beyond, and we worked with the auditor very early on. I kind of did some research to figure out when we started all of this. In anticipation, knowing these rates were going to be substantial, the increases. You know, we began proactively working with Auditor Kaitza in August. We had been forecasting and knowing that rates were going to be 25 to 30%. And so in those initial conversations, the one last piece, and let me go back that you'll look at. So the rollback factors work on that voted millage that's operating and the permanent improvement. Bond retirement is what's called a fixed sum levy. The millage can still be adjusted, but the whole concept behind a fixed sum is to produce a fixed sum of money as opposed to a fixed rate. So what ends up happening with a bond issue is the auditor asks us each November, what does your debt schedule, your amortization schedule look like? What is your current carryover balance in your debt service fund? And then they talk through with us how we're going to set millage so that we don't over-collect. For example, if our amortization schedule for 2024 says we owe $40 million in debt service payments, principal and interest, it would be silly for us to collect $50 million, because once the money's in the debt service fund, we can't move it around and use it for operating expenses or PI. Knowing this, we contacted our auditor in August. We had forecasts that showed that we were going to have this 25–30% increase. We did some calculations with our municipal advisor, and we saw very quickly that we could reduce our millage for our debt service collections, and we would still collect everything we needed to pay our debt service payments for 2024. We passed a resolution, in fact, as a Board of Education. I believe that was in October. We then worked with the auditor. The resolution that we passed at first was 3/4 of a mil. We had additional conversations with the auditor in November and December and took it an additional half of a mil to a full $1.25 million. What this chart will show the average homeowner is not the decrease that would have happened from what you paid in 23 to 24, because we've already had some people say, my tax bill went up, and that chart, you're trying to say it's going to go down. What this chart shows is how much higher your current tax bill would be had we not cut that $1.25 million. So for that same $400,000 average home in this district, as far as for mathematical average value, whatever tax bill they're looking at right now, if the tax bill's sitting on their kitchen counter, or if they're looking at it on their on the auditor's website, that bill would be $153 higher had we not made this move. That's what this chart is showing. So it's savings on your 23 pay 24 tax bill that we're in many ways kind of above and beyond in working with our auditor in figuring out what those House Bill 920 adjustment factors were to the other levies. Questions about this before I move on to know the facts?
I just think it's consistent that we raise what we need when we need it, and when we don't need it, we don't raise it.
That's the goal. And to be fair, we've had the question, because most people know that the ballot issue is 3 mills of operating, $1.25 million of permanent improvement. And so the question has been posed, you were silly to give up that $1.25 million and then turn around and ask for it again. Well, the reason we did that is because we couldn't, remember, harken back to 3 or 4 minutes ago when I made the comment, we couldn't still collect that $1.25 million for debt service and use it for the same purpose that we need the levy for, which are permanent improvement expenses. So it is better, it is more economically good stewardship to tell our community we're simply not going to collect more than we need to on the debt service, and we cut it $1.25 million.
Different buckets.
That's correct.
Fund accounting.
Say that again.
Fund accounting.
That's right.
It's fund accounting. You got to keep everything in a fund. Yeah.
So we've gotten some common questions that I'm going to address that have more to do with the growth of our district with respect to tax abatements, and some other questions about what the district can do to stop development. This is a hot topic. So if we simply pose the question, doesn't the district promote growth by approving TIFs with developers? TIF meaning a tax increment financing, which is an economic development tool that can be used by both political subdivisions like a township or a city and a developer to develop a piece of property and get the needed public infrastructure like roads, sewers, curbs, sidewalks, water lines, those sorts of things. The first point is the school has no legal authority to stop a township or a municipality from enacting a TIF of any sort, even a residential TIF. That being said, we have made it very, very clear to our township, county, and municipal partners that residential TIFs are not good practice for the district because the same land that is getting abated, or some of our tax dollars are being diverted into a TIF fund, ends up producing students from those same homes.
Before you go to the next point, it's important to understand that that TIF does not mean that whoever's getting that doesn't pay that. It just goes where?
It gets diverted, and that's why I use that, that wording. It gets diverted to what's called a TIF service fund. So assume an owner lives in a TIFed area or a business. That owner or that business are still going to send 100% of the taxes that were calculated on that property to the county auditor. They have to pay everything like they normally would, the TIF notwithstanding. What happens is the agreement with the township or the municipality that has the authority legally over that TIFed parcel peels off the portion of it that is abated into a TIF service fund. The TIF service fund is then used to support the capital dollars needed for roads, sidewalks, sewers, water lines, and all of the public infrastructure that serves either the TIFed area, and it has to have a proximity to the TIFed area, but it can expand to other areas as long as the benefit is for those parcels that are TIFed. And the public benefit also can be there for when a road is expanded, or if a TIFed parcel has to expand water lines, you know, a quarter of a mile, obviously as that water line goes by other properties. Those properties could tap in. That's why it's called public infrastructure improvements. But yes, the owners that own the parcels that are TIFed still pay the same amount. It just gets diverted, a portion of it. Schools actually, when it comes to TIFs, if the TIF doesn't abate or divert into the TIF service fund more than 75% of the taxes that are otherwise owed, and for more, I should say, than 10 years, schools actually have absolutely no say whatsoever in that legislation. And a township or a county or a city can simply inform a school district that they are using this tax incentive tool with a developer to develop a particular parcels, or TIF district.
State law.
State law.
How old is that law?
I don't know off the top of my head. I know it's been around as long as I've been a treasurer, and I'm old. So that's at least 20 years. So it's been there.
In some cases, we've actually been able to negotiate, even though it's been a 75-10, we've been able to negotiate payments in kind.
That's correct. And that is what we're going to talk about. You either work very, very diligently to still negotiate payments in kind, or the next bullet point is really what we shoot for. If we look at the majority of the TIFs in our district, they are non-school. What non-school means is that arrangement I talked about, where the tax dollars that the owners of TIFed parcels peel off into a service fund, none of our dollars get peeled off into the service fund. We get everything we're supposed to get. If we look by and large at the TIFs we have in this district, the majority of them are 100% non-school. I'll mention probably the biggest granddaddy of them all TIF, Polaris. The original Polaris TIF from the mid-90s, 100% non-school. We get everything we're supposed to get from that mall.
And these are all listed on our website under the 5-year forecast.
That's correct. That's correct. And I'm going to update, because what Mr. O'Brien noted, I'm going to update that in these TIFs too, where we have a compensation agreement, what do we get for the compensation agreement? What is it? Is it in some kinds, it's contributions in lieu of? For example, the most recent TIF that we would have approved was a 75% 15-year TIF for the property at the intersection of 23 and Shanahan Road. We got about $800,000 worth of contributions in kind. That will be the expansion of a sewer line from that development to Shanahan Middle School, and then a complete redevelopment and rerouting of a service road that is on, I guess, what would be the westernmost portion of Shanahan. It was about 800,000, Mr. Gordon? I think that was about it, somewhere in that neighborhood. So, the district understands that TIFs can be used, especially when we're talking commercial and industrial growth, as a tool that will expand the commercial industrial tax base. So we can't just simply view a TIF as no way, never, it can't ever happen. Again, if it's 75 and 10, there's nothing we can do anyway. But where we work with our partners, and different developments are commercial or industrial, we can talk about how it may benefit the community at large to expand roads, sewers, and especially when you're talking commercial and industrial development, it's not going to directly impact student growth. In fact,
go back to the orange TIF, Mr. O'Brien, a year ago, Trustee Faust came and talked to us about all the things the TIF was paying for that pointed to the safety of our kids in that educational complex area, that getting to school safer, walking paths, and then the other one, Bale Canyon.
Bale Canyon, Shanahan Road, all of that, yeah.
Those were the public infrastructure improvements that the township would then use with the funds that are diverted into the TIF service fund. So again, we work to find common ground with our townships that benefit the entire community and that don't create growth for the district in terms of TIFing or abating a property and still getting students from those same properties.
So now you've got commercial industrial, you've got residential, you've got mixed use in the middle, okay? We have typically tried, and I think successfully, Evans Farms is an example.
That's correct.
We have TIFed the commercial portion.
That's correct.
Not the residential.
That's right.
Okay, and that's an important distinction because there are people out there that say, oh, you TIFed Evans, all those homes. We did not. We TIFed the commercial portion, not the residential portion.
That's exactly right. We have a few residential TIFs in our district. I researched, I don't know that I found every one of them, but I know I found at least 3, and every last one of them were non-school TIFs. That means that, okay, the residences that are there, and those homeowners pay a full tax bill.
Yep.
It's just the portion that belongs to, if it's non-school, the portions that belong to other entities, and I believe these are all in the southeast corner of the city of Delaware, but I think the TIF belongs to the county, if my memory serves me correctly. Those homeowners still pay a full tax bill. It's just that a portion of their tax bill gets peeled off into a TIF service fund for public infrastructure. We still, as a school, get every penny of the tax revenue that we are supposed to get from those residential TIFs.
So say this again, not one home, single-family home in Evans Farm is paying less than their fair share, I hate that word, less than what they would have normally paid. There's nothing's been done to remove that. It is a burden. Taxes are a burden. Nothing's been done to remove that.
That's correct. What happens is and the homeowner would never see that, a portion of, and this is the Evans residential TIF that's not the Evans Farm along Lewis Center. It's the one more up towards, I forget a couple of the other subdivisions names. But yes, all of those homeowners are going to pay a full tax bill. Behind the scenes, they don't see it. Part of that tax bill gets peeled off and put into the TIF fund. That's correct.
But for our purposes, we're made whole in that.
We get 100%. That's correct. Well, there's nothing to be made whole. We don't lose anything.
Right.
Yeah, I know, but same concept. That's correct.
And bottom line, if there's a big tract of land and someone buys it and puts it in a neighborhood, what can we really do to prevent that?
Perfect segue.
Hey,
what can we do to slow development?
Hey, Mr. Jenkins, just before that, Mr. Jenkins had mentioned collaboration and partnerships with townships in our school. So probably about 2 months ago, the board received a 14-day notice for a TIF project from one of our townships, and we looked at that and went back to, because originally it did have a TIF on a residential area, and Mr. Jenkins and I worked with the township trustees to make sure that that was not part of the TIFed area.
They took the residences out, or the the plots that could have been, the tracts of land that were zoned residential, which is a perfect lead-in, Ms. Schreiber, to the next question. What can schools do to slow development? There's no other way to put it other than schools simply do not have any legal authority whatsoever over the planning and zoning process. Nor does the district have any authority regarding how residential development ebbs and flows in this district. I like to say it as we get a seat at the table. We get to talk to the township, the county, or the city, but push comes to shove, we simply don't make those rules, we don't make those laws any more than they make educational policy. In general, zoning drives what development can and can't happen. Large tracts of this district are already zoned in such a way because people are selling agricultural land that probably already has a farm residential type of zoning, possibly in some cases a residential type of zoning, that because of laws and planning and zoning set up by our township partners, our city partners, that's how they say the land is to be used. So if someone gets a piece of land that is zoned in such a way that it's very, very easy to plat it out and turn it into existing homes, and they can meet all the requirements of lot size, setback,
Comprehensive.
Whatever the comprehensive plan is for that plot, what actually happens is, there's a deliberative process where if maybe a developer wants to tweak or ask for something a little different, but in general, even that process for a developer, even though we may know they want to take a 400-acre farm field and turn it into 600 homes, the township, the city, the municipalities have to follow their own zoning code. They can't just decide in some arbitrary and capricious manner to tell them, well, you're going to bring in 500 homes and we don't like that.
Or else.
So they can be sued. In fact, developers have at times, and this isn't to give our developer friends a bad rap, it's just, hey, we should be treated by the same rules. If they have purchased, a big chunk of farmland, and then they own it legally, and they develop a plan that follows zoning code, it's just simply not good business practice for the people who make the rules to turn around and say those rules, though they don't apply to you, they're something different.
It's great business practice for lawyers, though.
It is. Exactly right. I want to stress that we have good working relationship with local township and municipal officials, and we continue to communicate and work hard. But there's a lot of factors that go into the process of just simply saying, why can't the school just stop all of this growth so that we don't have all of these kids? I like to say it this way. However a child gets in our district, if they're a legal resident of this district, we're going to educate them. That's our job. So the final question is can the developers or have the developers tried to do their part? And the answer is yes. It's certainly not as if they're just sitting back and greedily laughing all the way to the bank. Once again, though, I have to be careful. We could ask this question: can the school make the developers do their part with some type of impact fee? Schools have absolutely no legal authority whatsoever to assess what's called an impact fee. In fact, impact fees are exclusively the domain of cities and municipalities. Townships can't even do it. The Supreme Court struck it down in 2012. What is an impact fee? It's exactly what it sounds like. A city can say to a developer, when you develop this 200 acres and turn it into 150 homes, there will be a $2,000 fee per roof that you, developer, have to pay to the municipality. It's just something that's a tool in a municipal or city's toolbox. It's not in a township's toolbox, it's not in a county's toolbox, and it's not in a school's toolbox. We simply can't use it.
From other states, some states, they do that.
Absolutely.
So if someone comes from another state who's used to the district saying, we're not letting you build this, that's not the way it rolls in Ohio.
That is exactly correct. We are creatures of statute, and there simply has to be overt authority, overt, explicit authority for us as a government entity to do anything we do, and there simply doesn't exist any authority for a school district anywhere in the state of Ohio to say, okay, developer, you can develop there, but you got to pay us $2,000 for every student that you expect is going to live in those homes. You just can't.
And no one wants to pay an impact fee. They want the next person to pay the impact.
Right.
Correct. Correct.
And this doesn't mean that we don't press our position during these discussions. And it doesn't mean that we can't share the impact when we talk to the stakeholders in this. It just means when push comes to shove.
That's correct. And yet, now I'm going to say, well, what have developers done? So I actually did a little bit of research today because I got a nice spreadsheet from Mr. Gordon in the business department. We've got 3 schools listed there, Shale Meadows, Peach Blow, 2 schools, I'm a good counter. Shale Meadows, Peach Blow, I had Cheshire in my mind. I actually grabbed a spreadsheet today, and I'm going to list all of the schools that we got because of donated land from a developer. Hyatt's Middle School and Liberty Tree, that combined parcel. Peach Blow Crossing, Cheshire Elementary, Glen Oak, Indian Springs, Johnny Cake Corners, Oak Creek, Olentangy Meadows, Scioto Ridge, Tyler Run, and Walnut Creek. All of those parcels where our main school sits were in one way or another donated by a developer. So, you know, I guess my own personal opinion would be I would feel like that's not developers just sitting back and doing nothing. That is a type of, in some ways, anticipation of the impact, putting 200 or 300 homes in Alum Creek. If it's even only 200 or 300, that's a pretty big subdivision, and the impact that it would have on making sure that there's land there for the school to grow.
I also think it validates the concept of neighborhood schools.
Correct. I mean, in some ways, it's a wise practice for a developer to develop an area where people want to live close to Columbus, close to lots of jobs, and as we talked earlier with the size of our schools, they're large, but they're not so large that they don't still, and that's exactly how we design them, they don't still function as neighborhood schools. We can be a very, very large district and still feel small.
And we've bought land, Mr. O'Brien, you'll know, I don't know what you've done in the past. Like, you saw things coming and you said,
Not me, it was before me.
Yeah, I mean.
We've only bought land twice in 13 years, maybe?
Yeah. But outside of buying land to build a school, the district cannot be in the business of saying, we're going to get this land and just hold it, so they don't build. We can't do that.
Well, you know, and if we did, I would think that someone would ask if that's a wise and efficient use of our tax dollars.
We're not in the land speculation.
We're not prospectors or speculators. That's exactly right. And, you know, the law cleared it up pretty quickly that schools used to be, it's only been in the last 3 to 4 years, that schools just carte blanche could exempt property. Prior to about 2017 or 18, there was a Supreme Court decision that kind of made this a final say. But even prior to that, if schools held a piece of land or owned a piece of property but didn't use it for a tax-exempt purpose, it was not automatically exempted. Perfect example. Some schools would hold property and they would farm it or lease it for someone to farm. While that was being leased and while it was being farmed, it was not necessarily treated as exempt property. Now, the Supreme Court has ruled the school district's interest, just a matter of course that they hold the land, is exempt.
And then once you own it, it's not easy to dispose of it because it's a whole different process to dispose of buildings and land.
Correct.
In terms of you have to offer it to charter schools first before you can put it on the market. And
that's correct.
You may not even get market value for it if you dispose of it.
That is correct. We as a public entity, everything we do would have to be on an auction type of basis. And then, again, only after we've offered to charter schools. And it's just not the most efficient way to get rid of land. Questions? So the action items on the Treasurer's agenda tonight, there are a couple of donations. There are several coaching positions that the Olentangy Liberty Athletic Boosters are paying for. plus a donation you can see there from a Bill Browning. Approving the minutes from the December 16th board meeting, our December 2023 monthly financials, updated appropriations for the district for fiscal year 2024, approval of our annual comprehensive financial report for the year that ended June 30th of 2023, approval of our PAFR for the same year, 2023 to June 30th, approval of a settlement agreement, and recommend, ultimately, I'll recommend all of those as a consent one vote. Questions? Thank you. Sure. Don't clap.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Do we have any public participation?
We do. Kay Coughlin is here tonight to speak about Braves and Patriots as school identities and mascots. Did I get it right? Is it Coughlin or Coughlin?
It's Coughlin with a hard G. That's all right. It's a good
sorry.
try. Good try. So my full name is Julia K. Coughlin, but I go by Kay. My family name is Clodfelter, if anyone knows that name, and I am a graduate of Olentangy High School, class of 1991. I was a lifer, and in the first graduating class from the current Olentangy High School facility. I do reside in the district, and we live in the Berlin High School area now. I am here tonight as an alumna, current district parent, and resident to protest the continued use of the term Braves as part of the logo and identity of Olentangy High School, and to protest the use of the term Patriots for the identity of Olentangy Liberty High School. We dishonor the indigenous people upon whose lands we stand, and in essence erase their great legacies when we use these terms as part of the sporting contests and even academic programs of our schools. Sources say there were 6 main native tribes in Ohio: Shawnee, Delaware, Ottawa, Miami, the Wyandot, and the Seneca Cayuga. We are, at this very moment, directly occupying land that was theirs. We are occupiers on their land. We are gravely disrespecting and dishonoring their heritage and cultures. I am a white woman, and I openly identify as white because I want to make it clear that white is not the default skin color. I do not have Native people heritage. I am not black or brown, and tonight I do not represent anybody except for me. In fact, I do believe that my own ancestors fought in the war for America's independence. My family heritage is that of the white conquerors who fought in favor of the institutions of enslavement and oppression. So I know from what history tells us, and because my own family participated in this history, that the people commonly referred to as patriots in our history books were, in fact, the very people who upheld the tradition of committing land grabs, occupying indigenous lands, and conquering native peoples. So much so that the very indigenous people from whom patriots stole this land were not recognized as people in the founding documents of this country. I would like to read into the record the Olentangy Braves Creed, which I downloaded from the district website branding guidelines today. I am an Olentangy Brave. I will fiercely protect the truth and what is right. I will persevere through difficult challenges. I will lead and be proud of my actions. I will fly high with strength and conviction, and I am a member of a special family that will always be a part of me. I'm here to say that unless we stop using Braves and Patriots, we are hypocrites, intentionally dismissing this creed and failing to live by it. We further dishonor the sacred indigenous connection to this land by using the term Braves as one identity for one of our school communities, and by using the identity of Patriots for another of our school communities, because the Patriots were original oppressors of the Braves, and that legacy of oppression continues to this day. I will just conclude by saying I would like to request that, in accordance with our own Olentangy Braves Creed, we immediately announce that as a district, we are fast-tracking the identity changes to stop using the terms Braves and Patriots. These terms are racist They are of white supremacist origin, sadly, and they do refer directly back to our violent history of conquering Indigenous people. Are there any questions? I'd be happy to answer questions. I have lots of resources. I have a website where I have a lot of resources, and I will be at the One Community Conference if anyone would like to talk.
Thank you for being patient tonight.
Absolutely. I'm so glad I can be here. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Ms. Coughlin. Appreciate it. All right. Mr. Wright, we're up for the district calendar.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to take some time to talk about what's actually a little melancholy tonight. This is the 10th district calendar I've had the honor to present to Mr. O'Brien, who's been patiently part of all of those. I know, it's, I know you had this circled on your own personal calendar. Also, it's a little melancholy because all things planned out, this is the last calendar on my final lap. So this would be one that is a little more dear to my heart. So it's kind of interesting putting this one together. But this is something that culminates tonight in presenting some information to you. I'm doing it in a little different format. I'm going to show some slides that truly record some of the historical context behind the philosophies we've worked on over the years that shapes the calendar that we operate under. This is a labor of about 2 months, and I could not be standing here without the work of Allison Shape, OTA president. She and I have had a great number of conversations trying to come up with the best understanding of where we've been and how to create a calendar that serves our students and staff and families to the best of our ability. So with that, I want to jump right in it by sharing some things that are important for us that comply with policy and some attendance laws. Each time we do this, we need to share that the state requires that our students in grades 7 through 12 be in attendance at school 1,001 hours. If we take our calendar and our days, our time frame each day, that's 6 hours and 45 minutes for our students in grades 9 through 12. So that's a little under 1,168 hours per academic school year. Students in grades 1 through 6 need to be in attendance for 910 hours. Our first through fifth graders are in school 6 hours and 10 minutes a day, for a grand total of a little over 1,066 hours. What that means is we are in attendance more than 24 days more than we would need to meet the state minimum requirements for attendance. And what's not captured in there is our grade 6 students. They are counted in the elementary time, but they follow the middle school calendar. They actually have 2 additional weeks. They have 34 additional days of instruction than the state minimum. So we're here tonight because your policy 8210 says prior, or at least 30 days prior to an adoption, we share calendar information at a public hearing, and we seek feedback from our community and staff. And the information I shared above is information that we need to share each year. Additional considerations that from the policy is that we have to make sure that our calendar complies with negotiated agreements. So a couple of key factors that drive the calendar is that our negotiated agreement with the OTA determines that 185 teaching days with 8 work days without students be included, and on the last day of school for elementary students, there'll be a 2-hour early release on that day. So those components are also included in this calendar. So what I want to do...
Randy, before
yes, sir.
The shift to hours versus days?
Yes, sir.
Happened, I don't know, a few years ago. But it eliminated the whole need for, remember we used to have brown bag days?
Yes.
Blizzard bags? Yeah.
Correct.
And so I think it's been, actually, now that we've been in it for a while, a nice shift, gives a lot of latitude around.
Yep.
Without having to do blizzard packs.
Correct. And I think we're approaching 5 years on that change.
5.
Yeah, it's getting very close. So
that's why our kids don't do like online learning when there's school days, or there's snow days, excuse me, because we have more than enough instruction time
yes, ma'am.
built into the school year.
Very good. All right, so what I want to present first is the information that would drive a traditional calendar in our district. So here's some information, and what we're going to look at is several months blown up and isolated on this map, or excuse me, on these slides. So first we're going to look at August of 2025. Way back in 2016-17, our leadership committed to a philosophy after feedback from our community that we would not start school for students any earlier than the third Wednesday in August. And then in 2019-20, as a result of a negotiated agreement change, we moved that to the third Thursday of August, because they added a third workday before students started. So you see what a traditional start in August of 25 would look like on that slide. Additionally, in September, we have historically had the third Monday be a professional development day. When I started in the district in 1999, it was called Fair Day, and it was our one curriculum day of the year. Over time, we had a lot of students who participated in the Delaware County Fair for age projects, showing animals. That has not become very common with our students now. So we have continued this third Monday in September for several years. October, we are in the first iteration of us trying a fall break. We have a CODA Day, which is the October 17th Friday. Central Ohio schools typically have this off for professional development or otherwise. And part of our contract has a teacher workday at the conclusion of each academic quarter. So this past year, we used to have this on a Friday and another Friday, and then we did it sometimes with a Friday followed by a Monday off. This past year, we did it with a Thursday, Friday off consecutively, and we got some very good feedback on that as an option, so we are looking at that on this model as well. Very quickly, at the bottom of this graph, you see our traditional Thanksgiving break, and this would actually kind of go into December as well. As part of the negotiated agreement, we have an in lieu of conference day. So Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving, is an off day for students and staff. And then we have typically given the Thursday and Friday of that week as a Thanksgiving break. And then the Monday after is traditionally our professional development day number 2, and students are not in session on the Monday after Thanksgiving. And this slide shows what we have tried to do over the years with our winter break. Our philosophy has been to end the first semester before winter break. As a high school principal, high school teacher, I remember the years where we would stop, take 2 weeks off, come back for a couple of days, and start exams. It just was not conducive, and so several years ago we moved to this model, and it does wrap it up. It makes the first semester shorter, and I'll talk a little bit about that when we get to another month here in a second. But great feedback from our community over the years and our teaching staff that we strive to have 2 full weeks off at winter break, at that semester break. And then the placement of the contractual workday and the holidays over break also impact the timing and length. So while we strive for 2 weeks, we can't always guarantee that because of some other considerations, but this is what it would look like in a traditional format here. So as I said, what ends up happening when we end the semester before winter break is we have approximately 12 to 15 days difference where the second semester has more days. We've had some questions, why is it this way? 2 factors. One we already know, and Mr. Meyer was able to talk about, we typically see our weather disruptions in the second semester, so the days we lose for calamities, second semester. That helps that we've loaded some extra. Also, in April and in May, a lot of testing goes. We do a lot of different schedules so that we can accommodate all of the testing, and those disruptions to instructional time are kind of accounted for by having extra days accounted for in that second semester. This is to show what our traditional spring break would be. For the last several years, we have had the last Monday in March be the start of our spring break. We've had questions, why don't you split up the third or fourth quarter? The reality is that there is no academic difference between the third and fourth quarter. We don't change classes. Our middle school students are on a 6-week rotation in electives. That does not coincide with this. There is no real reason for a break. So we have moved to this last week in March. Typically, we had some feedback from our community. We've also had feedback from our athletic programs. We're in a district in Central Ohio, very similar districts. A lot of teams will travel to the south or to warmer climates to try to get some games in. OHSAA rules, when we had an earlier spring break, middle of March, our teams couldn't compete. So they had asked that we might be able to account for that too. And so those two things coincided with that. And then just at the bottom of this slide, we also have a second in lieu of conference day. Very similar to the day before Thanksgiving. We typically look at generating a long weekend holiday or holiday weekend, or a way to break up the fourth quarter. In this, it's Friday, April 24th on this draft. And then finally, we look at all of those factors, counting all of the teacher work days that need to be accounted for. If we followed all of the traditional factors, for 25-26, the final day for students would be Friday, May 29th, and then the teacher work day would be Monday, June 1st. So this was where we start, and this is where I started in early December, creating a draft. I immediately reached out, and Alice and I began to talk. We looked at it. She conferred with colleagues at other districts. She talked with Dublin about their calendar, and we started to see some things that we really didn't like. We didn't like how late this calendar ends, because it's later than anything else we've done. And we haven't had anybody working, certified staff or students involved in June for a decade. And so we brought it to our leadership team. Mr. Jenkins shared that there are some other considerations that if our certified staff is working in June, that creates some concerns for retirees. So we had a lot of different conversations, and now what I'm presenting to you is our draft calendar, but I wanted to first quickly go through and give you the philosophy on our calendar. So before I present our draft, any questions or clarifications on the philosophy? All right, with that in mind, this is the draft district calendar we are presenting for consideration, and we will be seeking feedback as soon as tomorrow. So to account for all things being equal, and to not have our certified staff working their workday in June, we are proposing a fix to be that the 3 workdays start on Friday, August 15th, and students would be in school for their first day on Wednesday, August 20th. That's the start of our school year. In October, you notice I skipped September that I showed you before. We have also received a great deal of feedback about that first professional development day. It's one of those things that we've just kept where it is due to tradition. Our curriculum team, our teaching team, our administrators have all said with the start of the school year and all of the things that go on in late August and early September, that first professional development day is rushed. And so we've been asked to consider an opportunity to present the first professional development day a little bit later, and our proposal on this calendar is that the first professional development day be Friday, October 3rd. You also see on this calendar the traditional fall break 2 weeks later. In November and into December, you see the traditional Thanksgiving break beginning on Wednesday, November 26th, and including Monday, December 1st. And the students' last day being Friday, December 19th. Winter break beginning on December 22nd. On this proposal, and it's one that we would want to get feedback, we are going to share and solicit specific feedback from our certified staff about when they think most appropriate would be for the workday that occurs at the end of the second quarter. This past school year, for example, the workday was right after students finished. So if we think of that model, it could be December 22nd. We're also proposing an option that it be Friday, January 2nd, with students returning to classes on Monday, January 5th. Spring break is exactly as we presented in the past, beginning on the last Monday of March, and our second in lieu of conference day would be Friday, April 24th. And with those considerations, we wrap this calendar up with students' last day being Thursday, May 28th, and the teacher workday Friday, May 29th. So our next steps will be gathering feedback. Our communications team, Jeanette Kenny, we are working to finalize surveys that will be sent to the community to allow them to provide feedback on things that are most important to them, allow them to rank some priorities on this calendar for consideration and give us feedback. And we'll be sending a specific survey to staff asking questions about the first work day, the professional development day, and the winter break work day. So we will be getting those pieces of information out in the next few days, and we will be collecting that no later than starting on Monday the 29th of January, and we will wrap that up early March. And then we will take that feedback, review it all, determine if any changes are necessary for the draft, and our intention is to come back to you at the March 21st board meeting for your vote to approve the 2025-26 calendar. Are there questions I can answer for you?
Good. Thank you, Mr. Ring.
Well done.
Oh, did you have a question? Sorry.
I'm very conscious of time.
All right.
Hear that,
Mr.
Jeff?
Gordon.
19 years in the district, and this is my first encore. I will try to make this as quick and painless as we can going through, but still be informative. Many items on the board agenda tonight. The first of which is just a quick annual bus purchase. Just as a reminder, we do this process through our membership in the Meta Purchasing Consortium with I believe over 200 other districts. This is the same consortium we purchased our natural gas and electric contracts through. So we try to get that large group purchasing there. The second item on my agenda was the loose furnishings for Peach Blow Crossing. That project's coming along well, and we're at the point of getting this furniture ordered and getting it in place prior to the opening of the school. Martin Public Seating was the winner of this award, of this bid, and they actually have put furniture in part of Berlin High School, had half of Berlin's contract, and have won the award for both Shell Meadows and Berlin Middle School. So this will be their third building in recent years. The land donation adjacent to Olentangy High School, that land was owned for quite a bit of time by Continental Olentangy Crossing. As that area was developed, they've continued to hold that. They don't have any other assets in the area, and contacted us about donating that land. The benefit for the district is it is right adjacent to our parking lot that is to the south of the stadium at OHS. So if we need to do some expansion or provide some extra utilities work through that area, we'll have that. And we've actually football games on Friday nights, I've seen a lot of cars parking there believing that it was the district's property already. So we'll actually own what is being used for parking. The big items, the next three are all go in conjunction with each other, and that is the first of which is approving the contract with Robertson Construction Services. As a reminder, we approved them back in the summer for our construction manager at risk, and that was based on a qualifications process that was run through Facilities Committee where they were scored and voted on, as well as the second phase of that was a cost proposal that was submitted. So not only were they chosen because of their experience and their great work that they've done for us, they also were significantly lower in their cost proposal. And a big part of that was because of the work they're already here, they're already in the district, and they can piggyback some of that work for us. And so with the performance, they've done very well. Clay Keith from Robertson is here tonight as well. So in conjunction with that contract, we're approving the contract, but then as we go into what are the GMPs, and for those just as a reminder, because not everybody's been here for a lot of these, that's the guaranteed maximum price. So that's the price component of the contract. So each time we do a component of the contract, in this case for the two elementary buildings, we'll get a GMP. These are broken up into one for each building, and then proportionately Robertson's services and construction contingency would be part of that. And then for the building, we'll probably have 3 GMPs, I think, for these buildings as we go through the process. This one is for each of these early procurement. So we've talked before when we were building Peach Blow, we bid that out several months earlier than we normally would have done a building because of the long lead time items. The same here, there's less long lead time items. So we've got several items here that we do have to, the air handlers, some structural steel, and early site work structures that to go on the ground. They have to get all those things ordered so that in order to keep our timeline, should we be fortunate to have a successful levy, we would need to start right away in April to get those buildings done. So in conjunction with the early procurement, there is part of this is part of the early site, and that's for the winner of the bid to start site work there immediately. There will be a lapse between the time that the passage of a levy and when we could sell bonds and get those funds. So if you remember, the board passed up to $20 million for work on this project to get us started, and that was part of the design, some of this early procurement, and a balance of that after the levy that would then piggyback on work that we would start immediately after, at some point soon after we'd have to go forward. So a good portion of these pieces we'd have to order, and they're ours. If the building gets delayed, we would still own this equipment. Some portions of it, like the site work, we would not incur cost unless the levy passed and we started construction on it. So there's both components in this early package.
And just to be clear, all of this is an attempt to save money, right? I mean, it's both dealing with lead times, dealing with delays, and trying to lock in prices so that we're not, exposed to some of the issues that we've seen later on.
Yeah, and locking in prices and the now is good to get those set as that continues to change. The long lead time items, it's important to get those in place, but where it really will cost us money is twofold. One, if we get delays in those materials and we can't open the buildings on time, or if we have to pay additional costs to expedite shipment or delivery or to move ourselves up in a process where there would be some extra cost as well.
And the lead time issue is real. So a lot of people are like, oh, the lead time issue. If you look over in Albany, Johnstown, all the AWS, Meta, Google, all those data centers, Intel, they need chillers, they need HVAC, they need water systems, and they'll buy a year's worth of inventory from an HVAC provider in anticipation of the development of a data center, which sounds like it should affect us, but we need that same equipment for a different purpose, and the lead time issue is significant.
Right, some of the same switchgear that we use for the big electrical components in our building are used by the factories or the data centers, some of those same things. So yeah, we're in that same boat with them, and you go in the queue and you put that order in. While lead times have gotten better, and we've been able to, we chose not to order the chillers right now because we think that that lead times come down enough that we're okay, but the flip side of that is air handling units from the same company do still have a long lead time.
Any other questions?
All right.
All right.
All right, thank you.
All right. Mr. Jenkins, do you want to present the consent action items for the treasurer? Whether you want to present them or not.
Thank you, Mr. Lester. Board members, tonight I have 7 items that will be presented to you. My recommendation would be to adopt them all by one single motion and vote. I will briefly discuss each item, and if any item board member desires to have it pulled out to discuss on its own, let me know. But item A would be to approve the noted donations. Item B would be to approve the meeting minutes from December 16th, 2023. Item C would be to recommend the approval of the 2023 financial report for the month of December. Item number 4, or D, is to approve the 2024 updated appropriation resolution. The 5th item would be to approve the annual comprehensive financial report at fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023. The 6th item is to approve the popular annual financial report for the year ending June 30th of 2023. And the 7th item is to approve the settlement agreement with Open Government Advocates. Certainly, board members, my recommendation is to adopt these all by one vote, unless anyone desires to have them pulled out and discussed individually.
Does anyone wish to have any of these items pulled out and discussed individually? All right, can I have a motion to approve then?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
All right, Mr. Jenkins. Oh, sorry, any discussion? All right, Mr. Jenkins.
Dr. Dabrico?
Yes.
Dr. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Ms. Schreiber?
Yes.
Mr. Lester?
Yes. All right, Mr. Meyer, with the superintendent action items.
Thank you. I would like to recommend for approval the following superintendent action items. A, specific human resource items for certified staff. B, specific human resource items for classified staff. C, approval of seniors for graduation. D, approval of curriculum and instruction items. E, approval of business management and facility items. I'm asking you to approve these items by one single action and vote unless you'd like to discuss any of these items separately.
Does anyone wish to discuss any of these separately?
The graduation, just early graduation.
Early graduate, yes, correct, early graduation.
Okay, hearing no one pulling out, can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion?
I would just like to congratulate those seniors graduating
Yeah,
early and wish them the best on their next endeavors.
For sure.
And noting that the Science Olympiad team is going to my alma mater in Notre Dame, so I hope they have a great trip.
That's good. All right, Mr. Jenkins, please call the roll.
Dr. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Ms. Schreiber?
Yes.
Mr. Lester?
Yes.
Dr. Dabrico?
Yes.
All right, that's the end of our action items. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? No. All right, Mr. Jenkins.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Ms. Schreiber?
Yes.
Mr. Lester?
Yes.
Dr. Dabrico?
Yes.
Dr. Wallach?
Yes.
All right, we are adjourned.